Hello and welcome. This is Guy Glidden, and it would help if I got you at the starting of this screencast. This is another in the set of 4 screencasts that are designed to help you with the complex assessments. And so this one is all about the match assignment and what to expect and how to help you with that. So the focus is going to be on 2 main areas. How you deal with interviewing to collect information about one's philosophies and beliefs, and how you look at somebody's job performance or behavior, and how they deal with, the areas obviously I'm tipping in my hand. Behavior, encouragement, and expectations for others are going to be things we're going to look at. So how do you put this information all together? As I want to emphasize to you, this is a set of 4 screencasts. Reflective Essays was loaded in on Friday the 2nd of November. This one and 2 others, one on the controversy assignment and one on the worldview, will be loaded in during the week of November the 5th. So this is what you can expect for support. Now, any of these assignments for this class, and this is true for, you can generalize, anytime you have assignments that are based on rubrics, the big thing to do, of course, is to read the rubric questions and make sure when you have completed the assignment, you're doing your best job to answer the questions in the rubric assignment. So this is just a cardinal rule anytime you have rubrics for an assignment. And these are the 4 questions that you're going to look at for the match assignment. So number 1 is all about getting the philosophy of the interviewed person identified as clearly as you can. Secondly, you're going to be looking for examples and illustrations of behavior expectations. So you've got a good view of the person's behavior that you're going to be collecting. Third, you're going to look for examples and illustrations, and I say teaching behavior. Keep in mind, some of you may not be doing this strictly as teachers, but in a sense, we're all teaching in any occupation because we're trying to get people to get their best possible performance, our co-workers, so that's always a matter of teaching. And then finally, you're going to do an analysis. So keep those questions in mind whenever we go forward on this assignment. And for this one, let's get right to the punch. The interview is the key of this assignment because that's how you collect the information. So you need to get into agreement with, and you need to set up a nice, friendly partnership with somebody that you're going to interview to get the information. So I said, it could be a coworker, could be someone that you share out in this class with. A little hard to make contact in this class because we're doing it online, but it could be a spouse, if you can get a spouse to go along with you on the assignment, but you need somebody to interview to get the information. And you're going to ask yourself, what's the best way to get a picture of somebody's beliefs and philosophy? And then you're going to figure out, how can I get an accurate and effective description of this person's behavior in a work setting? Well, let's start with some general guidelines for any kind of interview. You always want to do your best that you can to provide positive, open-ended questions that encourage responses. So think about the kind of questions that you respond to well, the kind of questions that encourage somebody to not only answer the question, but expand on the question, provide more information, add more information. In your case, as the person who's doing the interviewing and getting the information, the more information that you can get from the individual, the better. And my experience is that if you provide a good, positive format for the person so that it's a positive experience, people are always happy to tell about themselves. I am, you are, we're all the same here. And so then you're going to provide support in building the conversation. So if somebody answers with a yes, no, or a brief answer that doesn't, tell me more. Can you expand on that? Help me understand it a little more completely. I don't think I understand that, and I know you're an expert on that. These are kind of lead in a positive way so we can get. So the interview is the key. So put your best foot forward into being a good, effective, positive interviewer. That's the good way to go. Now, when you are asking somebody about their philosophy, think from your experience about how people might respond. And what I've done on this slide is I've provided 5 examples of belief statements that people have provided when I've asked people to write their own personal philosophy. So most of us, when we're asked to describe ourselves philosophically, we describe ourselves in terms of what we believe in. What are our beliefs? And that's a good place to start. There's nothing wrong with that. So again, think in terms of the previous slide. How can you help build on that? Well, here are some good examples, and these are from people, including some of you have provided these. This includes people from this class. Here's statement number 1. The learning environment. I want to build a learning environment that is exciting and rigorous. Here's a very popular one, number 2. All can learn, all children can learn, all adults can learn, all can learn, but not in the same way. Very popular belief in our society within the last 20 years. This person had an interesting response. Number 3, the golden rule governs my life. Okay, 4, my focus is on meaningful instruction. And number 5, my goal is to give student athletes the grounds not only to be successful athletes, but to be successful in life. Now, as you get those belief statements, you should be going back to the previous slide about encouraging people to expand on those and ask people, well, tell me more. And every one of these statements is a good starting place, but they all can provide a good opportunity for people to expand their thinking. So look at number 3, the golden rule governs my life. Well, I think I remember from my biblical instruction what the golden rule is, but wouldn't you think it'd be a good idea to ask that person, well, tell me more about your view of the golden rule. Talk to me in more detail about how you see that in your life. A great opportunity for expansion. And I'm sure this person would love to do so because obviously this is important to that person. Or all can learn but not in the same way. Well, what do we mean by learning? Learning what? And when you say not in the same way, what kind of differences are we talking about? My goal is to give student athletes the grounds not only to be successful athletes, to be successful in life. Well, what is success for a student athlete? Does that mean they should be the, well, how would that person explain it? How about success in life? What do we mean by success in life? Is it making lots of money? Is it being happy all the time? I don't know. That's why. So these are great personal belief statements that you can expand on and help people expand into a more complete view of their philosophy. They're great starting spots. So again, repeat the same message I started to. Encourage others to build on and combine these belief statements. How about the limits of these belief statements and the extent of these beliefs? If we believe that all children can learn, do we have any limits on that? What does that mean? How does that mean realistically? If I have a child who has Down syndrome, does that mean that I should have the same expectations as a child who is in a gifted program? Probably not. But you're going to help. So help the person. So when you're through with this section, you're going to get a pretty good view of this person's beliefs that you can kind of move towards something that approximates a philosophy. Now let's go a step further here. How can you develop a description of one's behavior in a work setting? Well, think about these areas here. When you're in a work setting, when I say what tapes do we play in a crisis, it's a very common belief that when we're in a crisis mode, we go into what I call a crisis. We go into automatic behavior. In other words, if we're going to handle people who are in a crisis control situation, have to have their response is so well developed and rehearsed that they don't have time to think about it. So what tapes do we play when we're in a crisis mode? How do we encourage others? How do we define limits for others? Now, those would be important to me as a teacher, but they'd also be important to me if I was selling real estate, or if I was trying to organize an architectural firm. I'm an architect, and someone comes in to describe to me how they want a building to look or how they want a development to be conceptualized. I'm going to have to be a pretty good interviewer. I'm going to have to get some ways to encourage people to expand on their beliefs, but also I need to be understanding when we talk about defining limits for others. And how does one develop a problem-solving strategy? Because a lot of our life and our work is how do we solve problems? How do we get things solved when we get a problem? Now, earlier someplace in the materials I provided, this was my example. As an amateur musician, I've worked over the years for a number of directors for amateur musical groups. And my example is, what does the good musical director do when things are not going well? When we're either playing instruments or we're singing and it's not going well, how do they put it back together? How do they get it organized? And that kind of goes down to three things I've put here. Use of teachable moments. We talk about those. What do we mean by those? So when we get a situation where we can all learn a little bit better, do we think about developing focus? Do we really focus on an end result? Do we do a good job of maximizing that? And then most job performance in this day and age has to do with getting along with other people, getting other people to work with you, encouraging, supporting, getting the maximum involvement of others that work around you so that you're working together as a team. So how do you do that? Now, after the interview, you're going to have two types of information. You're going to have a whole section of some notes on beliefs and philosophy. Then you're going to have some examples and illustrations of work behavior. And now you're ready to start to assemble and analyze with the use of the 4 questions. A couple of other thoughts that might be helpful to you. After you put together your beliefs and philosophy, your notes on that, I don't think there's anything wrong with you sharing it with the person you got the information from. They might help you and expand on it and even help you write the paper. So I always think it's a great idea to take advantage of it. Well, I've tried to emphasize, I think, again, the key issue here is the interview. Getting good, effective information. You get control of that, you're going to provide me with a good assignment. Thank you very much. Good luck on this. We'll talk more about this as well.